Why is the Chinese economy not doing well, yet the RMB exchange rate doesn't crash dramatically? Everyone remember this. The RMB is a very special kind of currency. Among the world's mainstream currencies, say the top 20 or even top 10, the RMB is the most special one, bar none. Its degree of specialness even exceeds the Russian ruble. The ruble is special because it's under sanctions. The RMB is special because it has always existed among the world's mainstream currencies, yet it operates in a completely unique way. If the world were a village, then in every household in the village, people use real money. But the Chinese household uses IOU slips written by themselves. This is a huge loophole. Someone might ask, doesn't every country have that? Yes, other countries also have people using white slips / IO us. But those are small, weak countries. Their domestic currency practices basically don't affect the international economic order. The reason the RMB was previously in this IOU / white slip state was precisely because China used to be small and weak. Nobody took China seriously. It wasn't until the Clinton era, when China joined the WTO, that the RMB remained under highly controlled, non-freely convertible status. At that time, the United States and the major Western developed countries did not think this was a big deal. Why? Because small and weak countries having non-convertible currencies was quite normal. So why did the West, the US, and major European economies show such high tolerance and not force China to immediately open the RMB? Some people say Clinton was stupid. You're the stupid one. Look at Clinton's educational background. Look at his wife's educational background. How could he be stupid? Don't forget the big trend and the big premise. I always say small matters depend on the individual. Great matters depend on the nation. National luck / national destiny plays the main role. If your luck comes, even a pig can make money. I'm a living example. When I talk finance to you guys, everything I give you is real stuff, things you didn't know before. Once I explain it, you have that aha moment, because truth is actually that simple. Why did Clinton tolerate Zhu Rongji playing rogue? Why didn't he force Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji to sign a deadly clause in the WTO agreement forcing full marketization and free convertibility of the RMB? Think about it. China joined WTO in which year? 2000, right? Negotiations mainly happened 96, 97, 98, 99. And why during that period did they show such tolerance? Because of the 1998 Asian financial crisis. That's when you'll suddenly understand. During the Asian financial crisis, almost all Asian freely floating emerging market currencies collapsed. Thailand, Philippines, South Korea, even Japan and Singapore were affected to some extent. Hong Kong was attacked by speculators. Philippine peso was smashed. Indonesian rupiah, Korean won. All those emerging economies whose economic size at the time was not smaller than China's, especially South Korea, had opened their currencies too early. Both current account and capital account were liberalized, full convertibility. Then Soros and other big speculators shorted them ruthlessly. The Korean won was hammered. The country nearly collapsed. In 1998, ordinary Koreans donated their gold jewelry to save the national economy. Do you understand now? So when Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji said, we don't want to end up like them, Clinton had nothing to say. The U.S. negotiation team went, yeah, that makes sense. Look what happened to Korea. Damn, we can't let that happen. Honestly, the United States still has some. And so they did not force China to open both trade and capital account convertibility. That is, force full free convertibility of the RMB. That is the key reason China has been able to secretly cheat / get away with it all these years. The U.S. is not a dictatorship. Presidents change, one administration after another. A new president often just drops previous issues. That's the previous administration's problem. The new one doesn't touch it. So after Clinton left, president after president kept kicking the can down the road on forcing RMB full liberalization. 1 5-year term, another 5, 3, 4. Suddenly, China's trade volume became #1 in the world, became the world factory. China can now arbitrarily adjust the RMB exchange rate, completely Busho Shichang control, entirely controlled by the People's Bank of China, PBOC alone. And the PBOC officials who manage the RMB exchange rate just happen to be students of Greenspan. Greenspan equals the father of the modern Federal Reserve. In the monetary world, Greenspan's status is like, in China, my status in restructuring and listing companies, or Li Xiaolai's status in crypto, the absolute founding master, the OG monster. Yi Gang, Zhou Xiaochuan, and others, they all came out from under Greenspan, got firsthand fed modern monetary management knowledge and technology, then came back and, just like Apple's Foundry or Xiaomi's Lei Jun copying, implemented at the PBOC a world-unique Forex dual-track system. They split the RMB into onshore RMB and offshore RMB. The offshore RMB base camp is in Hong Kong, free trading there. But there is only one market maker for offshore RMB, Bank of China Hong Kong. In other words, the source of offshore RMB spot is controlled by BOC Hong Kong. No matter who wants to go long or short, buy or sell, rise or fall, you have to trade against the PBOC or its designated agent. That's how they control offshore RMB. Onshore RMB, still the same as in 1949. You have nothing to do with it. Right now, you can exchange up to 50,000 US dollars per year. That's just a historical accident. It won't stay like that forever. Today, I'm telling you 4 key sentences. Write them down. Remember these 4 points. Then you can forever solve the mystery of the RMB exchange rate yourself. No need to listen to Zhai class teachers, Zhou Qiren, fake or real Liu Jiping. None of them. 4 factors determine the RMB exchange rate. Rank them like iron plate divine calculation, Taiban Shenshu, USD trend/USD expectation. This is the number 1 most important factor. Recently, the RMB surged, broke 7.14 offshore. Scary, right? From around 7.30, suddenly jumped to 7.14 in a few days. Little pink nationalists were banging gongs and drums like it had something to do with them, as if they could actually exchange 50,000 USD. The first reason for the recent RMB spike, just like the yen, has nothing to do with China's domestic economy. It's because everyone expects the Fed to cut rates aggressively. US can't hold any more arrow entering a mood/atmospheric recession arrow, sharp Fed cuts arrow, USD weakens dramatically. When USD weakens, all major currencies strengthen against it, but RMB and JPY show it most clearly, the 2 strongest guys in the room. So the recent RMB rise is mainly a USD hedge/safe haven move, same as yen. Foreign exchange reserves. As long as China's FX reserves don't dry up, then RMB cannot collapse dramatically. It can spike up, but crashing down, impossible. This is a slow-moving chronic factor, trade surplus closely related to number 2. If FX reserves are the reservoir, then trade surplus is the inflow tap. China is simultaneously opening inflow, export dollars forced to be settled into RMB, and outflow, capital leaving, etc. But as long as the monthly trade surplus remains positive, it won't trigger a collapse. The most important factor, the Hong Kong offshore RMB liquidity pool, the one I've done whole episodes on, this is the genius invention of Yi Gang and several PBOC vice governors. They really played it at world-class level. The offshore RMB pool in Hong Kong is another reservoir, but this one holds RMB, not dollars. And the inflow/outflow taps are 100% controlled by the PBOC. Open the tap arrow flood of RMB into Hong Kong market arrow, RMB weakens. Close the tap arrow, RMB becomes scarce arrow, overnight rate spike greater than 10% arrow, RMB strengthens. It's micro-tuning, complete control, like flying an airplane. That's why last year end, when it suddenly almost broke 8, fell from 7.3 towards 7.8, it was because some two-faced people, Zhang faction reactionary forces, tried to embarrass Xi. They dumped massive amounts of offshore RMB to Russia, Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil, etc., hoping to create a real offshore RMB trading market. But those guys immediately sold the RMB in Hong Kong for USD. Thousands of billions flooded out in one go. Water tap broke, then PBOC slammed it shut, replaced the mechanism, slowly refilled, then back to controllable. So the offshore RMB market is fake. It looks like a market with candlesticks, but it's completely manipulable by PBOC via Bank of China Hong Kong. As long as there is oil, that is China's continuous trade surplus, the blood and sweat of Chinese workers in export factories, the engine keeps running. PBOC can raise or lower it at will. This mechanism is effing awesome. I rarely praise Chinese economic officials, but the PBOC's offshore RMB exchange rate mechanism is world number 1, even better than the Fed, and the US can't say anything because it looks like a free market. Ha! The only US president who ever challenged it head on was Trump. He said, first thing when I'm in office, force China to stop manipulating RMB, force appreciation. But normal establishment presidents, Democrat or Republican, as long as it's deep state/establishment, won't touch it. Because for the US, it's not an acute, life-threatening issue. It's more like chronic hepatitis. America only reacts violently to acute emergencies, Pearl Harbor, etc. As long as China doesn't press the button to bomb Hawaii, the 2 parties will never unite to fix a 25-year-old mistake, so only Trump kept saying it. Summary, the 4 factors. USD weakness to RMB strong. Recent surge reason number 1. FX reserves arrow still abundant. Trade surplus to still positive, slightly down but positive. Hong Kong offshore RMB pool to still smoothly controlled. So how could RMB fall? It would only fall if PBOC deliberately wants to play rogue again to boost exports and grab more dollars. Therefore, RMB will not crash. And precisely because of this mechanism, global forex institutions and investors understand it very well. They will choose offshore RMB, CNH, as one of the top hedges against USD/EUR risk. Once they do that, RMB quietly becomes one of the strongest currencies in the world.